the rest of America thinks. It's not the way the Speaker thinks when he crafted a bill that was incredibly fair to the District of Columbia and fair to many of the students who, yes, have an opportunity to get these few scholarships. And God help us, I just wish there were more because they wish there were more, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Maryland.
I yield to the gentlelady from the District of Columbia 1 minute.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the majority has been obsessed with depriving the District of Columbia of its home rule rights ever since this Congress opened. They've come now with their choice, their preference for the people I represent. If, in fact, the majority is correct that this program has been so effective, I ask you why you have not brought a national voucher bill to the floor so that your constituents could have the very same thing my constituents have. I know why. It's the height of hypocrisy to put it on us and not bring a bill to the floor to give the same wonderful, wonderful opportunities to your own people. I have a home rule agenda in the amendment coming up. I challenge you to bring a national voucher bill to the floor this session.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The gentleman from California.
I'd like to inquire of the minority, do you have additional speakers at this time?
No, we do not.
Then are you prepared to close?
We're prepared to close, Mr. Speaker.
Then I'll reserve my time for
The gentleman
close.
from California reserves his time. The gentleman from Maryland.
Might I inquire how much time each side has, Mr. Speaker?
The gentleman from Maryland has 1.5 minutes left, and the gentleman from California has 5 minutes remaining.
Let me say this, Mr. Speaker. I yield my such time as I may consume. The ranking member said that basically this is a gift to the District of Columbia. And, you know, the chairman of the committee, and I would appreciate it if he would take into consideration, while handing the District of Columbia $20 million in vouchers, H.R. 1, which he voted for, would take from the District of Columbia now $2.39 million from the D.C.'s Title I funding, $500,000 from the funding for the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. This is just from the District of Columbia. $23.5 million from Pell Grant, so that when these kids get through the system, like he just said, they would be able to have some money to go to school. But H.R. 1 takes away $845 per year. That's a lot of money for a college student. $5.7 million from federal supplemental educational opportunity grants. $3.92 million from Head Start programs, which would disallow 700 students, Head Start students, from going to Head Start. So when you talk about giving a gift, that's one thing, but just in Pell Grants alone, you take it away from the very people that you say you support. And, you know, let's just be fair about this, Mr. Speaker. This is about every child. We want every child, and I've said it in committee and I'll say it again. There's nobody on this side of the aisle who wants more for every child to have an education and have a good education than we do. And so hopefully this matter will be resolved, but this is not the way to do it. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
You know, there has been a lot of talk about H.R. 1, and I think that's a bigger picture than what we're looking at here today, but it should be considered. Republicans offered on this floor and passed, without the support, for the most part, of the other party, a continuing resolution. We have been responsible in trying to fund the government, and we tried to fund the government at over 90-some% of what it would have been funded had the majority not changed, and certainly at or above 2008 levels. But that bill died in the Senate. Everything seems to have died in the Senate, and yet it can be demagogued as though we've cut. But you can't cut what you haven't done, and you can't cut what you haven't offered an alternative for. We cut what was already on the books, $75 million to $60 million. We did decide, with the Speaker's leadership, that we were going to keep this program, which we believe works. It's at $20 million, it's just a fairly large pilot program. As one of the speakers on the Democratic side so aptly said, you have to win the lottery. There aren't enough slots. You're right, there aren't enough opportunities for the District of Columbia. But unlike what the gentlelady, the delegate from the District of Columbia said, we don't have an authority to go out and do this as a national referendum. But more importantly, we don't have the money. This is more a matter of showing the benefit to states which may or may not choose and giving an opportunity to one of the worst school systems, most failed school systems in the nation. Students in the District of Columbia in math and science and reading are typically 51st when compared to the 50 states. This is, in fact, a difficult area if you happen to be a student in this district. If you're like the President's family or his predecessor or his predecessor or his predecessor, if they have school-age children, they don't go to public school, they go to private school. That's pretty well known. Well, private school offers opportunities and it offers choice. And, Mr. Speaker, this $20 million per year of special funding for opportunity scholarships is all we're talking about today. One of the speakers, rightfully so, called it $100 million over 5 years. The delegate from the District of Columbia called it $300 million, but she was forgetting the other $200 million goes right where she wants it to go. The only thing we're debating is over 5 years, will $100 million go to opportunity scholarships that don't basically go to union school teachers that are failing the students in a system that is failing. We just lost the head of education here, Ms. Rhee, and in fact, part of the reason she left was she saw a new administration that didn't seem to live up to the high expectations that the previous one did. That's a local matter. That's local control and local rule. We're not preempting that. They have a right to fail, and they are failing. But Congress has a right to at least intervene. And in closing, what I want the Speaker to understand and America to understand is in 1996, when chartered public schools were authorized in the district, it was authorized by my predecessor on the Republican side, Mr. Davis. He got it in and got it funded, and he got it made law over the objection at that time of the people of the district. We've looked through our records and can find no broad support for this mandate. The district did not do chartered public schools on their own. They did it with an act of Congress, with help. I believe they should take the same suggestion. If they want to choose to disagree with the conservative, extreme Washington Post, so be it. But I think they have to begin to look at themselves more deeply, at those that they actually represent, those who voted for them but did not vote to have this money rejected. I urge strong support for this bill, for this opportunity, for the few who win the lottery, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. All time for general debate on this bill has expired. Does the gentlelady from the District of Columbia seek recognition?
Yes, I have a substitute amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment in the nature of a substitute printed in House Report Number 112-45, offered by Ms. Norton of the District of Columbia.
Pursuant to House Resolution 186, the gentlelady from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton, and a member opposed, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from the District of Columbia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I have to correct the gentleman from California. The National Charter School Bill was created by Speaker Gingrich in partnership with me. He came to me and proposed a voucher bill. I asked him, since the district had a local charter school bill, if he would introduce instead a voucher bill, a charter bill. We consulted with the public officials, with the school board, with citizens. It was the home rule alternative to vouchers, and you can check with Speaker Gingrich. Now, my home rule substitute would redirect the $300 million in H.R. 471, 50% to the public charter schools, 50% to the District of Columbia public schools. If the majority wants to add $300 million to the deficit without an offset, then let it at least be on the basis of educational merit. Then it should be added to the public schools, which have shown major growth, the only public school system of the 18 largest urban school systems that showed significant improvements in math and reading over the last 2 years. If you want to add to the deficit, then at least add to it by giving money to our public charter schools, which outdo the D.C. public schools and way outdo, of course, the voucher schools, which showed no improvement. The public middle and high schools scored twice as high as the public schools in the district in math and reading, and they have a graduation rate 25% above the D.C. public schools and 8% above the national average. This is where you would give the money if you had any interest in education in the District of Columbia instead of your own parochial interests in making a petri dish of the pet project of a few members in the District of Columbia. You would look at our public charter schools as the alternative to the district public schools. There's 53 campuses amounting to almost 100 different charter schools, almost half of the children of the District of Columbia. How did they get there? They voted with their feet. Listen to some of the names of these schools: Washington Latin School, Washington Math and Science and Technology. I have myself appointed 2 students from Washington Math, Science and Technology to the service academies. Early Childhood Academy, Hospitality Academy, Howard University Middle School, that's a charter school. The KIPP schools, we got 4 of them. Those are the top charter schools and some of the best public schools in the United States. A seed residential charter schools. You have some money? You want to spend some money? Here's the place to spend it. The D.C., to show you just what kind of a home rule alternative this is, with almost 100 different schools, they've got 19 new schools coming in 2012. People keep coming despite the improvements in the district public schools. They're going to have a preschool. They're going to have a preschool charter. They're going to have 3 new high schools, one at all male college prep, one that focuses on public service, another that focuses on math and science. You want to talk choices? You want to talk creative choices? Look at the District of Columbia. Well, we know how to create choices for ourselves, choices that our parents want, choices that our parents create and pay for, because they want their own choices, not the choices of the Republicans of the House of Representatives. In a democracy, the choices of a self-governing local jurisdictions trump all other choices, and especially the choices of members who are not responsive to the people of the District of Columbia, who do not have to stand for election in the District of Columbia, get a free ride, as I do not. If you insist on adding to the deficit, then for goodness sake, reinforce the home rule, hard work of our own parents and our own local organizations. Commend them for the dazzling array of almost 100 public, accountable charter schools they have created. Relieve their long waiting lists, which now contain thousands of students waiting to get into our charter schools. The District of Columbia did not appreciate being an unwilling object of a Republican experiment once. With your cavalier defiance of our choices, we like it much less a second time around. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlelady reserves her time. Who seeks time in opposition?
I claim time in opposition.
Gentleman's recognized for 20 minutes.
I'll yield such time as he may consume to the subcommittee chairman who has worked so hard on this issue and who truly does understand the gentlelady's passion, if not her accuracy. Mr. Gowdy.
Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I'd like to thank the chairman of the full committee, the gentleman from California, for his leadership. It is instructive, it is informative, not to mention ironic, that there were opponents to the D.C. charter school system, just like there is resistance to the Opportunity Scholarship Program. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, some of the very same people who rise today in opposition to the Opportunity Scholarship Program and lauding the virtues of the D.C. charter school system once opposed that very charter school system. The charter school system is a success. I will acknowledge that. Just like the Opportunity Scholarship Program is a success, they're both successful because the parents in the District of Columbia want choice. I hate to be redundant. I don't want to beat a dead horse, although it does not hurt the horse to return to the evidence. And the evidence proves beyond a reasonable doubt, by any reasonable statistical measurement, the parents want this program, the students want this program, the community wants this program, even some elected officials want this program. They just happen to not be ones we have heard from on the other side of the aisle today. Reading scores are up, educational attainment is up, graduation rates are up, and it bears repeating again. There is a myriad of maladies that are connected to the dropout rate in this country, and if all we do is get kids to graduate, it is worth it for this program alone if they just get kids to graduate. Opposition to this bill, Mr. Speaker, and make no mistake about this, opposition to this bill is political and not factual. And I say that because 18-year-olds in the District of Columbia can take federal dollars and they can go to Notre Dame and BYU and they can go to Stanford and they can go to Baylor and they can go to Rice. So why do we oppose federal dollars helping 17-year-olds? Let that point sink in. 18-year-olds can take federal dollars and go to whatever private school they want to. But 17-year-olds cannot take private dollars and go to whatever high school they want to, and I defy anyone to explain to me that distinction. My colleague from the District of Columbia is a passionate, zealous advocate for her constituents, and I commend her for that. Genuinely commend her for her passion and her zeal in representing her constituents. But even her passion is no match for the passion of parents who hope for a better future for their children. Even her passion cannot match the passion of the parents who came and testified before our subcommittee that this is a lifeline, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and for us to say no to the Opportunity Scholarship Program because of pure, raw gutter politics is wrong. And I would oppose this amendment, and I would ask my colleagues to support the Opportunity Scholarship Program.
Gentleman reserves his time. Gentlelady from the District of Columbia.
I'm pleased to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Maryland, the ranking member of the committee.
Let me say this.
Recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me say this. The last speaker said something that I found very offensive when he said it's about raw gutter politics. I personally resent that. And the reason why I resent it is because it sends the wrong message on this floor. We can have disagreements, but this is not about raw gutter politics. This is about standing up for every child. I've said it over and over and over again. And I, as a product of public schools, and my children who have gone to charter schools and public schools, and I've sat on a charter school board, and living in an area in Baltimore where The Wire is filmed, I can tell you that this is not about raw gutter politics. This is about the politics of lifting children up so that they can be the best that they can be. That's what this is all about. And I've said it in committee, and I'll say it over and over again. There's not one member of this on this side who do not care about every single child. And when we talk about this program, this voucher program, one of the things that we need to consider is we're talking about right now about 1,012 kids. We're also talking about a charter school program with over 27,000 and counting, and that affects a lot more people. What we're trying to do is help as many kids as possible. You talk about the graduation rates. The graduation rates for the charter schools are better than this voucher program graduation rates. And so what do we try to do? We need to be trying to address things in the most effective and efficient manner. And so it's easy to talk about gutter politics, but what we're talking about is trying to help every child. Now, you talk also about how we can take this money, children can take this money when they get to college and go to various places, colleges, and you're right. But the fact is that when you just voted in H.R. 1 to slash $845 per year, and I see students every year, the board I sit on and the college board in Baltimore, where kids, for $845, that $845 would cause kids not to be able to attend college, period. So it's nice to lift them up and say, first of all, we don't give them, we cut off money from the Head Start, so they can't get the Head Start. We want children to even get to the point of being able to be in a position to go to high school. We also want, but then after they get out of high school, and it is not about gutter politics, after they get out of high school, we want to make sure that they are able to have the necessary funding to go forward. And so I don't consider what the other side is saying one bit. May I have another minute, please, ma'am? Just 1 minute.
I'm pleased to give the gentleman
just 1 minute. Thank you.
The gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Let me be clear. I do not consider it gutter politics for the other side to argue what it's arguing. I believe there are philosophical differences, and that's okay. And we will differ. And I have never, not once, and I don't think anybody on the side has not once said that we don't all want to lift our children up. That's what America is all about. That's how we became the great country that we are. For every child. And again, I say it, the worst thing we did, the greatest threat to our national security is our failure to properly educate every single one of our children. Leave no child behind. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California.
Speaker, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Walsh.
Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. What are they afraid of? What are my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Mr. Speaker, afraid of? Let me second my colleague from South Carolina, respectfully. It is about raw gutter politics. Respectfully, my colleague from Maryland talks about standing up for every child, helping every child. What are they afraid of? Why won't they help every single child? And it is politics. My colleagues on the other side can dance around any rationale they want to dance around. The evidence on this issue, we're beyond it. We are beyond having to debate empowering parents. We're past that. So what, respectfully, on the other side of the aisle is causing my colleagues to be against empowering, and I'll emphasize the word, every parent? My colleague from South Carolina says, respectfully, no.
Nerve to yield.
My colleague from South Carolina respectfully said raw gutter politics because my colleagues on the other side are scared to death of offending the teachers' unions. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Speaker, the teachers' unions are scared to death of this scholarship program. Because look out, if this scholarship program demonstrates success, and it has, it will be modeled all over the country. And that, respectfully, is what scares the teachers' unions, because they don't want kids to be able to escape. And my colleagues on the other side will answer to what they want. That's the politics that we're talking about. We're talking about power. The power should go to the parent, plain and simple. Every parent, charter school, public school, homeschool, private school, you name it. That's where the power should lie. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentlelady from the District of Columbia.
How much time remains?
Gentlelady from District of Columbia has 10.5 minutes remaining, and the gentleman from California has 14.5 minutes remaining.
To the gentleman who didn't have the nerve to yield to me, this bill, of course.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a point of order.
Mr.
Speaker, a point of order.
This bill.
The gentlelady will suspend. Gentleman will kindly state his point of order.
Mr. Speaker, isn't it true that the House rules prohibit direct accusations about the intent or the personal features of somebody, or in fact whether or not they have nerve?
The chair is not going to respond to a hypothetical question.
And I'm not going to take down the gentlelady's words because it is too short a period of time.
The gentlelady is recognized.
The speaker before the last speaker wanted to know what the offense was. The offense is to the home rule prerogatives of the people of the District of Columbia to decide on educational choices for their own children. That's what the offense is. Now, I'm pleased to yield 2 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Andrews.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 2 minutes. Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my dear friend from the District of Columbia for yielding. One of the previous speakers said that he wanted to empower the parents of the District of Columbia. I agree. I think we should empower the parents of the District of Columbia to elect a representative who has a vote in this chamber. Why don't we start with that? The irony of the proposition that this bill is allegedly about empowerment of adults in the District of Columbia and their children comes from people who I assume would resist the notion that the representative of the District of Columbia should have a vote in this chamber. And let me bring up some very recent history. Under our majority, votes in the Committee of the Whole were in fact afforded to the gentlelady from the District of Columbia. On the first day of the new majority, it repealed her right and the rights of others from the territories to vote on matters in the Committee of the Whole. There is one issue in this bill. Taxation without representation is tyranny. Decision-making without representation is wrong. The duly elected representative of the people of the District of Columbia supports this amendment and opposes this bill. So do I, for that reason. I would suggest, Mr. Speaker, that tomorrow we should consider a bill reorganizing the public schools of Cincinnati, Ohio, because we have just about as much prerogative to do that as we do this. Support the amendment, defeat the underlying bill. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the gentleman from South Carolina goes to the dais, we should bear in mind that home rule is not the right of the District of Columbia to rule people's private homes and how they make their choices for their children. And with that, I would yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from South Carolina.
The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in support of H.R. 471, the Scholarship Opportunity and Results Act, and against the Norton Amendment. You know, coming from South Carolina for 8 years in the General Assembly, we debated the positive benefits of school choice. I've heard every argument. But what I have seen prior to 2009 is that here in D.C., school choice was a model for the nation as a very successful program. We've seen the positive impact of injecting free market principles into the education system here in Washington, D.C. We've seen thousands of students' lives changed. We've seen them line up for a chance at a better life because they could escape a failing school and have the opportunity to reach their full potential. Because all students learn differently, it is imperative that we empower parents. And that's what it's about, empowering parents to make choices for the education of their children. Give them the ability to choose the best educational experience for their child, whether it's public, charter, private, or homeschool. Neither the state nor the federal government knows what's best for our children. We do as parents. Parents know what is best for their children, and parents and teachers should have the freedom to work together to find and create motivating learning environments that are necessary for every child to succeed. This bill restores to the parents the ability to make the right choices that this administration and the previous Congress stripped away, and it provides an escape from the failed bureaucratic system of the District of Columbia. Without question, when students are placed in a learning environment that best fits their individual needs, our educational system will become exceptional. This bill brings more transparency and accountability to the program, raises the scholarship amounts for both elementary school and high school students, as my colleague from South Carolina said, and caps the administrative cost. This bill takes a successful program and makes it even better, and does so without spending new taxpayer dollars or growing the size of government. In fact, school choice saves the government money while providing a better education for the children. It's my hope, Mr. Speaker, that other states will follow suit. Even as parental school choice for working American students and families in Washington, D.C., we have also seen its effectiveness in states like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Florida, where the achievement gap between white students and minorities is disappearing. My home state of South Carolina is debating school choice right now in their legislative session, creating a bill that would expand educational choices and opportunity for all children across my home state, and I urge my fellow colleagues in South Carolina to get the job done and pass that legislation. Let me thank the Speaker of the House for introducing this bill. Thank you for your leadership on parental choice on behalf of Washington, D.C.'s families and students who demand effective schools. I urge my colleagues to vote no on the Norton Amendment and yes on the SOAR Act, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentlelady from the District of Columbia.
The gentleman cited a number of schools that he said choice had helped. There is no data showing that choice schools, and there have been a few in the United States, have ever scored better than children in public schools. And since Milwaukee was mentioned, let me indicate some news that has just come out today. Results from the first administration of statewide exams to students participating in the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program show lower academic achievement in choice schools than performance by students attending Milwaukee public schools. Results also show that the Milwaukee public schools and choice schools have significant lower achievement than the statewide average. But here you have a big city public school system that's doing better than the choice schools, and that is what the data shows all over the United States, including the District of Columbia, where the Bush Department of Education specifically found that the children in the voucher schools did not show significant improvement in math and reading scores. Well, I have detailed here this afternoon significant improvement of the D.C. public schools, the only urban school system that has in fact shown significant achievement in math and science, and particularly dazzling results in the D.C. charter schools. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I don't have any more speakers, so I reserve.
The gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at this time, it's my honor to recognize the distinguished colleague, my distinguished colleague from Indiana, Mr. Pence, for 5 minutes.
Gentleman from Indiana is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the distinguished chairman for yielding and for his leadership on this issue, which is near and dear to my heart, as it is to the hearts of thousands upon thousands of families in the District of Columbia. I also rise in opposition to the Norton funding amendment. The gentlelady knows she and I have worked together on occasion on issues. I know her devotion to the District of Columbia, but we will just have to respectfully disagree on this issue. Because I simply believe that the Scholarships for Opportunities and Results Act represents the continuation of one of the most important programs that I've had the privilege of being a part of here in Washington, D.C. Now, there's a suggestion that this legislation takes money away from the public schools, but I think, as we've heard in this debate, because of the three-sector approach created by the original authorizing legislation, district public schools and public charter schools have received over $250 million in additional direct federal payments since 2004. Both DCPS and the charter schools will continue to receive increased federal dollars under this legislation. So the old arguments against giving students and parents more choices because it denies funding to public schools don't even attach here on the facts. But beyond that, let me say the reason why I felt the need to come to the floor today, the reason why I so respect the Speaker John Boehner's leadership on this issue, is because of meetings that I've had in my office with oftentimes the teary-eyed parents of children in the District of Columbia. I'll just never forget last year meeting with moms and dads from the District of Columbia, most of them from the minority community, who came to me with tears in their eyes and said, I have one child that is in a private school. I was able to take advantage of the D.C. scholarship, but because this administration in the last Congress terminated it, I cannot give that other opportunity to their younger brother or sister. And they literally came to me at that time, and I was in a leadership position in the Republican majority, and said, please do something about this. And my heart went out to those families. And we had an election. And now we find ourselves in a renewed Republican majority, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives today is a man who probably has a larger heart for kids as a former chairman of the Education Committee than maybe any other former speaker in the history of this institution. And so we find ourselves at this moment when I can say with no small amount of emotion, I can say to those families, yes, we're going to put this scholarship back. We're going to say to the rest of your children that they deserve the best choice for their education future as well. And it's a noble moment for this Congress. You know, the old book tells us that whatever you do for the least of these, that you do for him. I think this is one of those moments where we look at families that are struggling under the weight of some of the most beleaguered public schools in America, and we're putting our arms around those families and saying, we're going to give you more choices. We're going to let you as parents, regardless of your race or income or status in society, we're going to give you the opportunity to make the same choice for a public school as a private school and a public school and a charter school as Americans who have the means to do so can make. And let me also say, I see this debate over educational choice, whether it's in the District of Columbia or in my own beloved Indiana, as all tied up in the debate over education reform that has been manifest throughout this country over the last half century and more. I mean, there was a day, almost in my lifetime, it's just on the periphery of my lifetime, when some stood in the schoolhouse door and said, "You may not come in." But we fixed that as a nation. And now there are some in the massive education establishment in this country who stand in the schoolhouse door and say, "You may not come out. You may not have the same choices that other Americans have simply because of your means and your condition in life." The Scholarship for Opportunity Results Act levels the playing field.
I would yield the gentleman an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman is recognized for 30 seconds.
The SOAR Act opens the schoolhouse door. It reopens the door for opportunities for these families and for their children in the District of Columbia. And I believe it was before a model for the nation, and it can be so again. And so I encourage my colleagues to join me in respectfully opposing the Norton funding amendment, but vigorously supporting H.R. 471. Let's stand with those families. Let's put joy in their hearts. Let's create a boundless future for their children. Let's pass the Scholarships for Opportunities and Results Act. And I yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentlelady from the District of Columbia.
No, I respect my good friend, and I've got to stand for and with the people I represent and if the gentleman wants to put joy in the hearts of my parents, I challenge him to put joy in the hearts of the parents of his beloved Indiana, as he says, by bringing a national vouchers bill to the floor so that some of them may have the choice that we have not asked for. I yield the gentleman from Maryland, the ranking member of our committee, 3 minutes.
2 minutes to the gentleman from Maryland.
Thank you very much. And as I listened to our last speaker talk about teary-eyed parents, well, guess what? I see teary-eyed parents who want to put their kids in Head Start. I just saw them last week at a town hall meeting. H.R. 1 slashes over $1 billion from Head Start. They're in tears too. Guess what? Morgan State University, and in my district, by the way, a total of 20,000 kids will not get Pell Grants or have $845 slashed per year from Pell Grants. They're in tears too. You know why? Because they'll drop out of school, and many of them will never return to school because they don't have the money. They're in tears too. And I believe with all my heart that the Speaker's intentions are good. You won't hear me say that, anything to the opposite of that. But I think, again, I'm trying to figure out how do we take the dollars that we have and spend them in a most effective and efficient manner. And when we talk about the least of these, I really want to see kids get that Head Start that I'm talking about. And for the life of me, maybe I'm missing something. I don't see how, on the one hand, we talk about these children that we love and how we want to embrace them and how we want to embrace their parents and bring joy to their hearts, but then take away the very money that would allow them to be able to get to where they've got to go. I mean, and you're right, that many did, there was a time when people could not get in that schoolhouse door all over this country. My parents, they would be riding the bus, they would be walking to school for 4 miles, and other kids could come riding the bus, spitting on them. May I have an additional 30 seconds?
I'm pleased to give the gentleman an additional 30
Gentleman's
seconds.
recognized for 30 seconds.
So, and they weren't able to get an education. So, all I'm saying to you, Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is that, you know, let's embrace all of our kids. You know, I want for my colleagues' kids, Mr. Speaker, the same thing I would want for mine. And this program affects about 1,000 kids. Well, just in charter school, there are over 27,000 in district. And so I would just support the gentlelady's amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from California.
Mr. Speaker, can I inquire how much time each of us have remaining?
The gentleman from California has 6 minutes remaining, and the gentlelady from the District of Columbia has 3.5 minutes remaining. 3.5.
Then I'll yield myself 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, maybe we should lighten up just a little here. You know, Yogi Berra apparently said, nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded, when referring to a restaurant that had long lines to get in. Mr. Speaker, we're finding a way to say a program isn't good because it has long lines waiting to get in. And oddly enough, when it comes to the chartered public schools that have been lauded on a bipartisan basis here, they too have no free right to automatically go, and they have lines. Perhaps what we should be asking is, on a bipartisan basis, what could we do to reduce the lines to both, to provide that opportunity to all the children of the District of Columbia? And I will say one thing, in maybe a Yogi Berra type way, if the Democrats will come halfway to the center of the aisle to talk about how we can hit a reasonable number for spending, I will put everything on the table, at least as to my vote, to meet them the other half. But we can't simply say all cuts are bad and have no alternatives. All programs are so needy they can't be cut, and then complain even when we preserve a program. I reserve the balance of my time.
The member reserves his time. The gentlelady from the district.
Mr. Speaker, the residents of the District of Columbia see a pattern here. The majority begins by taking away my vote in the Committee of the Whole, so I can't vote on any part of this bill this afternoon. Then they take away, or try to take away, the needle exchange that keeps HIV/AIDS from being spread throughout the District of Columbia. Now, they're also trying to take away the choice of low-income women in two places, a reproductive choice of low-income women in two places, H.R. 1 and H.R. 3. They've introduced a bill to put their version of gun laws on the District of Columbia, although the courts have found our new gun laws to be constitutional. This morning we hear that they're coming forward yet again with more to do to the District of Columbia when they say they want to erase our marriage equality bill. Now they say, but after taking all of that from you, we got something for you, something you never asked for. Vouchers instead of funding your own home rule choice, your public charter schools. Yeah, we know you fund the charter schools as well, but you then fund your choice, not ours. And my amendment says if you want to fund something, ask us. Fund what we want, not what you want. And if you want it, bring yourself a national bill right to the floor. I can understand Republicans voting against my substitute. They will argue perhaps that it adds to the deficit. But if you vote against my substitute, then I don't see how you can vote for 471, because it certainly adds to the deficit. Choice, not ours. Many of you have come under the banner of liberty, getting the federal government out of even federal matters. Now you're trying to get into a purely local matter involving our children and our local schools. If this were your district, you'd ask us to defer to you. I'm asking you to defer to our preferences. The District of Columbia asks to be treated exactly as you would want to be treated, as free and equal citizens of the United States of America, not as second-class citizens, not as children, and certainly not as the colonial subjects of the Congress of the United States. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back the balance of her time. The chair will remind the members to direct their comments to the chair. Gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Speaker. In closing, we won't fund failure from this side of the dais. Yes, we're giving additional money to the failed public schools. Yes, we're giving additional money to a chartered public school system that tries valiantly to help those children trapped in those failed public schools. And yes, we are going to make a continued small investment in children having an opportunity to find other alternatives, just as we do when children a little older get to go to Georgetown or Catholic University with Pell Grants that in fact go to these parochial colleges. Elections have consequences. The majority a year ago had planned on simply giving it all to union schools, to government schools, because the party of government was in charge. Mr. Speaker, an election made a difference. We consider ourselves, and we try valiantly on this side of the aisle, to be the party of the people. And we believe that the small amount of money to empower people, parents, to do something they choose, and they stand in lines, in lotteries, as the other side has said, to escape those schools and to have an opportunity for these scholarships, we believe they have spoken loud and clear. And although the delegate will talk about elections and home rule, she ignores those long lines to get out of failed public schools. She ignores the hearings we had in which people came and said, please don't take our scholarships. And, Mr. Speaker, she even ignores her own party, and she ignores what's in her own amendment. Mr. Speaker, her amendment would leave 216 special cases that were denied still in for this year. Her amendment would leave in, the same as the Democrats did when they closed out the previous bill, it would leave those already in school, in private schools, getting additional funding every year. And there's a reason. President Obama's children were not going to watch their schoolmates be thrown out because a successful program that allowed them to be side by side as peers rather than relegated to a failed school was going to be stopped. So all we're doing is keeping a program of hope alive for the District of Columbia, and I have never been so insulted to be told that if we give money, we're bad, and if we don't give money every place the other side wants it, we're bad. We are trying to do the best we can to give parental choice to failed school districts. And with that, I urge the defeat of this amendment that does nothing but retain the public school status quo that has failed, and the passage of the underlying bill, and I yield back.
The gentleman from California yields back his time. Pursuant to the rule, all time is expired. The questions on the amendment is offered by the gentlelady from the District of Columbia. Those in favor will signify so by saying aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
Yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by the nays and yeas will rise. A sufficient number having arisen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
For the bulk of the day, the House has been debating a bill that would reauthorize Washington, D.C.'s school voucher and scholarship program. 3 votes here. The first one on the amendment by Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton of the District of Columbia. Her amendment would redirect funding from private school vouchers to D.C. public school improvement programs. So this first vote is a 15-minute vote, and we also expect a motion to recommit in this series of votes. 15-minute vote on the House floor. They'll finish up work here, finish up this series of votes, and we expect them to move on to debate a bill that would prohibit the EPA from requiring a permit for the use of registered pesticides in navigable waters. Also today on Capitol Hill, both the House members and senators are getting separate briefings, we understand, briefings on Libya, classified briefings, from Secretary of State Clinton and Defense Secretary Robert Gates. We're seeing some video after those briefings, hearing from a few members, and may be able to show those to you before too long, but we will show them later on the schedule. You can count on that. Also in Washington today, President Obama speaking at Georgetown University, outlining an energy plan, a plan to call for cutting U.S. dependence on foreign oil by 1/3 in the next 10 years or so. The administration is also directing the federal government to ensure that all of its vehicles purchased by 2015 be electric or alternative use fuels. We will show you the President's comments later in our program schedule. You can also watch them online at cspan.org. But following the President's remarks at the White House, Energy Secretary Stephen Chu came to the briefing room to take reporters' questions on the administration's new efforts. It's about a half an hour, so we'll show you as much as we can during this first vote, a 15-minute vote.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have with me two special guests here to discuss the President's speech earlier today on America's energy security. I have the Secretary of Energy, Stephen Chu. I also have Heather Zeichel, who is the Deputy Assistant to the President for Energy and Climate Policy. Secretary Chu will open with a short statement, and then the two of them can take questions from you. And why don't we address the questions that you have for them at the top. We can let them go, and I'll remain to take questions on other issues after they leave. Thanks very much. And I'll call on people once they start.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon. This morning we heard the President talk about a bold but ambitious and achievable goal to reduce our oil imports by a third by 2025. And this is a goal, although ambitious, I believe is achievable. So instead of spending $1 billion a day to import foreign oil, this is a goal where we believe we can be investing in money and creating wealth in the United States. To achieve this goal will require two things. It's going to require increasing domestic production. It will also require decreasing our dependence on oil. And so for that, let me at least tell you of some of the things the administration has been doing over the past 2 years. We've established an historic fuel economy standard for model years 2012-2016 for light-duty trucks and cars, and that's expected to save $1.8 billion of oil per year, barrels of oil per year. We've made great strides in electric vehicles. In 2009, the United States produced less than 2% of the world's advanced batteries, but with the investments made, we expect that we'll have battery capacity of producing up to 500,000 batteries per year. This could be 40% of the advanced battery world market. We've also made great strides in battery research. A lot of the battery technology, the latest chargeable battery technology that is now being invented in the United States is being built in the United States, and there's going to be a huge market for these batteries. We've made great strides in biofuels. Research being done only 1 or 2 years ago are now being designed into pilot plants today, and we expect this to continue. We also expect to be announcing groundbreaking plants for commercial scale cellulosic and advanced biorefinery plants in the next 2 years. And we've also assembled teams. For example, at Caltech, there's an energy team, a hub that would create biofuels directly from sunlight. And this is an economic way of just bypassing plants or algae or other forms of energy. So these are things that we have been doing. Natural gas. As you all know, natural gas is a growing amount of natural gas. The reserves, because of the ability to frack shale rock, has been increasing. We believe that it is possible to safely and responsibly extract natural gas, and the U.S. government remains committed to that. Electricity, the President has spoken before about electricity. Today, we have roughly 40% of our electricity is in clean energy, if you consider the nuclear, the wind, the solar, natural gas can have credit. We've set as a goal, the President has announced in the State of the Union by 2035 that we would expect 80% of our energy to come from clean sources. This is very important because what this means, this goal means, is that it unleashes a lot of the capital sitting on the sidelines for the lack of certainty that could be invested in America to create jobs, to create these new clean energies. So these are many of the things that we're doing today, but as said, the bottom line message is that we feel the pain that all Americans feel on the price of gasoline today. We see what it will need to, as the President stressed, it's not a short-term fix. We're going to be increasing the production of oil in the United States, but there is a global plan put forward that would say this will require a concentrated effort for years to come, but ultimately what this is about is diversifying our supply of energy from oil into many other different sectors, and with that we can have the means to go forward. And with that, I'll go over to Heather.
I'll go ahead and questions, Jim? Jake?
I defer to my Associated Press colleague. Mr. Secretary, one of the things that Republicans have seized on are comments that the President made when he was in Brasilia that the U.S. intended to become a major customer of Brazil's oil resources. And I'm wondering, given that comment and what his intentions are to reduce reliance by a third, how do you square those two?
Well, I think, first of all, the President was in large part talking about partnering with Brazil in the development of their oil resources. American companies have a lot of technical expertise in drilling oil, and especially deep water oil. And so I think part of it is that this allows American companies to partner with Brazil so they can develop those resources. But it is by no means in contradiction to decreasing our reliance on foreign oil, because we also want to increase the production of domestic oil sources, both offshore and onshore. And so this is in no ways contradictory to that.
Okay.
Secretary Chu, do you think that the American people need to change their behavior at all in order to reduce our dependence upon foreign oil? Or is this really just something that's going to happen for us magically?
I think, you know, given the statements over the last many decades, this is something that requires a concerted effort, both in policy, but I think in terms of the behavior, I mean, the price, the oil shock that occurred in 2008 is something, and now we're beginning to live this again, through this again in 2011. And I think what we want to do is to take stock of what's been happening since that time and say, look, let's look for a long-term path on what we need to do. And then, again, go back to this. Increase efficiency in your personal vehicles. It means electrification in many cases. Batteries, we think, you know, if you asked me 2 years ago, could I say that there would be a mass-marketed car within the next 5 years where you can drive 300 miles in a car that, let's say, you can buy without subsidy of less than $30,000, I'd say, I'm not so sure. Today, I think it's really within grasp. I really feel that one could do this. And there are many companies and countries that recognize that within a short period of time, these batteries and these vehicles will become a reality.
So that beyond more fuel-efficient vehicles, though, you don't purchasing those. You don't think there's anything the American people need to do in terms of changing our behavior?
Well, I think people will automatically have to adjust. I mean, the terrible thing about the high oil prices is it comes right out of your pocketbook every week. And so, and this is something that the administration feels very deeply, and we recognize that. And that automatically does things. But in the meantime, what we want to do is say we have a plan going forward to actually give America the real long-term solutions. So it's electric vehicles, it's biofuels, it's efficiency, natural gas. Can be a player in transportation sector as well.
Is there ever any consideration given to trying to change the Americans' behavior by raising taxes on fuel? I know that's a forbidden thing, but it seems to be the model in much of the rest of the world, and it's even some states do it more than others.
Well, I think right now, I think the President's plan was outlined, and we're going to stick to that plan. I think it's a solid plan going forward in the future.
Mr. Secretary, when you took this job, did you expect that you'd be overseeing a policy that was based on so much additional drilling, given what was released today, which seems to be a lot different than, say, the rhetoric that we heard even during the campaign and when you signed up?
No, I think the President has said many times that drilling, development of the fossil fuel resources in the United States, as long as it's part of a comprehensive plan, was part of the package. And I think that's, we still remain committed to that. The President remains committed to that vision.
Yeah. The President said there are no quick fixes, and you've said that too, but just so the American people understand this, is there anything in this whole spectrum of things that the administration is working on that would actually bring down the price of gas or restrain the rise of the price of gas in the next year? And if not, what is the soonest any of these would have an effect on the price of gas?
Well, it's very hard to predict anything that could predict how the short-term price of gasoline, the short-term price of oil, how it would affect it. Certainly, if one says that America is committed to further exploration, further drilling of gasoline, oil in the United States, that might have some effect, but it's very hard to really predict what's going on there. I think what you want to do is show that we have a plan going forward that diversifies the energy supply and transportation. And given that plan that diversifies that, so Americans have a choice. You know, they can plug in their car to drive. They can use biofuels to drive. They can use more efficient cars, as well as oil and gas, which will be around for decades. When you have those choices, that you're no longer subject to a single source. And that actually has a very calming factor in all markets.
Why not? Mr. Secretary, how can you convince Americans that Republicans are wrong when some of them say the President's actually cheering on $4 a gallon gasoline because it adds to the pressure to implement these clean energy policies?
I don't think anyone really would say, look, the price of gas and oil today is so high that it's creating such hardship to the American public and to businesses, and the recovery is fragile. And so I don't think anyone seriously can consider that anyone in public office, especially the President, would consider cheering on. We want to give Americans solutions that will begin to work today, but continue to work so that 2 years from today, if something like this should happen again, we're not surprised. We will be in a better position to absorb that, given that we'll have a diversity of choices.
But it's still half what they're paying in Europe.
I think that may be so, but again, we've seen Americans are now flocking to automobiles with much higher gas mileage, and they're voting with their feet. And as we develop better and better, more fuel-efficient cars, plug-in hybrids, other hybrids, more efficient internal combustion cars, the Americans will vote with their feet. They see in the long term what might be happening, and I think the Americans will make the right choice.
Yes, sir. Mr. Secretary, the President talked about incentives for gas and oil leases. What precisely are the incentives, and when will they come into effect?
Well, he spoke of spurring on gas and oil leases. I don't know what the exact fraction is, but maybe Heather can do it. But right now there's roughly 50 or over 50% of the leases that are now given out are not being explored. Maybe 70% of the offshore leases.
Through a Department of Interior report that was issued yesterday, what we learned is for offshore leases, about 70% and about 50% onshore leases remain idle. And what we're focused on to address that domestic production component that the President spoke today about being so important is finding new incentives to develop those idle leases. And so one of the options that the Department of Interior is exploring is looking at the terms of the lease sales, so that when a company is going out proactively and developing aggressively on their leases, there are additional opportunities we have to extend those lease sales. So more of a carrot approach.
And when will it take effect? When will you decide?
Well, on some instances for offshore leases, we're already implementing those. We're working with Congress we need legislation in order to do that for onshore leases. Obviously, this is part of a broad array of initiatives that the President talked about today, and part of what we think is an important component of a bipartisan bill on energy policy.
There's really no date then?
Well, I think we're doing the offshore component, and we're working with Congress on the onshore component.
Have you extended any offshore? You said, I guess one of the incentives is extending the leases?
Correct. For companies that are doing due diligence to to develop the leases that they currently have. And again, you know, this is all through the lens of we want to make sure that when we're going out there and companies have access to significant amounts of oil and gas, which the Department of Interior report pointed to yesterday, that those resources are being developed in a timely manner. And for offshore leases, there are already some measures that we have taken to make sure that that's happening, to bring those oil and gas resources to American people.
Yeah, nuclear power, Mr. Secretary, which the President talked about again today as being a required component. You've talked about that. 3 weeks after what happened in Japan, are you convinced that TEPCO has that situation under control? And looking at the lessons for America, are you convinced that investors in America will ever look on nuclear as safe enough to build new plants?
Well, first let me talk about the American nuclear reactors. We believe they are safe. The President has ordered the Nuclear Regulatory Agency to go back and be doubly sure. The ENPO, a very strong safety group, industry group in the United States, is looking and seeing what we can do within the Department of Energy. We're also adding to that. So this terrible tragedy that happened in Japan, you know, one of the fourth largest earthquake in recorded history, one of the largest tsunamis, I'm sure, in recorded history, will teach us some lessons, and we will use those lessons going forward to make the current fleet of nuclear reactors safer, and we will also use those lessons to make any future nuclear far safer. And so we do this all the time whenever there's an accident like this, whether it be an airplane, an oil rig fire, anything. We go back, we learn lessons, and we push forward and say, okay, we're going to make it much safer. Okay. With regard to TEPCO, I think that you know, this is a very trying circumstances. We stand by and we're working very hard with them in any way we can to lend assistance or technical advice. We're not there on the ground, but we do have conversations with them, both the NRC, Department of Energy, and others, daily, and we are working very hard for them to mitigate any future potential risks as best we can. And so, you know, I can't really be sure of anything since I'm here and they're there. But again, with regard to American reactors, we believe they are safe, and as a result of this tragedy, they're going to be safer.
Let me get that. Secretary Chu, on two issues. One, you're talking about you feel America's pain when you go to the pump, but at the same time, while you're feeling this pain and you're launching the pocketbook, what mechanisms are in place right now to make manufacturers not gouge the consumer when they go to buy that electric vehicle, when they go to buy that biofuel vehicle, because at this point, those cars are much more expensive than the average price car. So what mechanisms are in place?
I couldn't actually ask in terms of, you're talking about the gouging of highly fuel-efficient cars, for example?
Hybrid cars, yes. All those cars that help you ride better with gas. Right. You know, keep your mileage low, your gas mileage low.
I don't know.
Well, I think there's a couple things. First and foremost, through strategic investments in both the Recovery Act and the budget, the President has made significant investments in the research and development for these new advanced technologies that will bring cleaner, more efficient cars and trucks to American families. And those technologies, you know, we're working every day. Secretary Chu can talk to you about what we're doing to help bring the prices down for these technologies, and what we're doing as an administration across the board to look not only at cars and trucks but biofuels again as a solution to bringing prices down.
But in answer to a specific question, look, the allegations of price gouging at dealers or the allegations of price gouging at gasoline stations, I think, come up every now and then, and we're not really, I personally am not really sure to the extent it's happening, but in the end, this is very quickly self-correcting. And let me go back to what's been happening. In the last couple of years, in the last 2 years, the American car companies are bouncing back. They're offering much more fuel-efficient cars. The Americans are recognizing that those are the cars to buy. The administration has been incredibly supportive and pushing in this direction. And so when you have that growing and that supply growing, that will naturally take care of itself.
My second question, following up on what Mark was asking about the risk of creating new nuclear facilities in this country. With the new, Since we've seen what's happening in Japan, are there any concerns about any new buildings, any new construction for nuclear facilities that they're not located in populated areas? Is that a concern as well for here in the country?
Well, I think what has happened in the past is what the public doesn't fully appreciate is many of these reactors were built, let's say, 40, 45 years ago in places where were not so populated, and the population grew up around them. And so as we go forward and cite places, that will be always be a consideration. But let me also say that the newer reactors, first, going back, if you look at the current fleet of reactors, they are constantly being upgraded. A team of scientists and I toured one of them because it was a Mark I GE that was a sister reactor to the one in Japan, and since they'd been decommissioned many years ago, we actually can walk inside and get a feel for what was going on so that we could actually help and get a better first-hand experience about what might be possible. Even when we were touring this decommissioned reactor, we got a good flavor for the constant upgrading of safety during the lifetime of that reactor. This will continue in all our current reactors. But in addition to that, the newer reactors that are now on the drawing boards and are being built are going to be far safer than even the ones that were built 40 years ago. And so it's just like today's automobiles and today's airplanes are safer.
Secretary Chu, while you're here, I know you're not on the ground in Japan, but you testified on the issue a couple of weeks ago. Could you give us your assessment of the current situation in Japan with the reactors? What do you think is going to happen in the coming days?
Well, I think what the most crucial thing, first there are 3 direct reactors under distress, and we're also worried about spent fuels and 4 spent fuels, especially the most recent one that has the hottest fuel. And so the first order of business, and this appears to be, at least now under control, is that you keep the water in the spent fuel ponds and you keep cooling the reactors. There has been damage, we know, in the cores of 3 reactors, significant damage, and we're monitoring that situation. We're also worried about how to keep them cool, and then in the longer term, how do you get the salt water out of those reactors and resupply them with fresh water so that you can minimize any adverse effects, for example, corrosion. So these are the things that we're focusing on here in the United States. And how do you go into a long-term...
The nays are 237. The amendment is not agreed to. The gentleman from New York.
I rise to a point of order and ask for order in the House.
The House will be in order.